Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. If you've wondered how to heal trauma and reclaim your power through somatic tools, you're going to want to listen in on this show. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Good morning, Giants. Welcome back to Wake Up with Giants TV. We've got another great episode for you today. A little bit of housekeeping. Currently, we are in the middle of our SG program, which is Sum Gigante. I'll share the screen here briefly. And so that is our 6-week program to help you reprogram all of the old stuff that's keeping you from living the life of your potential. So all of these tools that we teach in these shows are designed to help you break free from old patterns that are no longer serving you. And so we're going to add to that today as we go through this conversation. We won't be running our next show for probably 8 weeks or so, or our next program. And so if you want details or information on that, please reach out, message me, and we'll get you details on how you can be a part of that program and start to rewrite yourself into the giant that you are. So these 12 journeys are designed to help you break free from the inside out. It's going to be a powerful tool for you. Outside of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you see when we go live every single day and time. We have over 330 episodes so far. And our goal with this show is to be vulnerable in our own lives, but also teach you tools that are going to help you to grow in your relationship, your success, and everything else. So, Andy, do you have anything else you want to announce on your end for you?
Nope.
Not yet?
Not yet.
All right. That's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest, Chris Wasko. Did I say that right? Or Wasko?
Wasko.
Wasko. Don't say it like a Utahn. Wasko.
Like Mongo, honey.
Like Mongo. So Chris Wasko. So many of us carry wounds from past relationships, emotional abuse, or unresolved pain. And we're left wondering how to feel safe, grounded, and whole again. That's why today's conversation is so important. Our guest, Chris Wasko, is an energy healer, spiritual counselor, and gifted psychic medium who specializes in helping old souls and survivors of narcissistic abuse heal at the deepest levels. Through somatic tools, intuitive insight, and energy balancing, she helps people calm their nervous system, reconnect with their inner selves, and step back into their power. She's here to share tools that don't just soothe the surface, but help you truly integrate trauma and transform it into your spiritual strength. So, Chris, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
You're welcome. We're going to dive into the journeys here a little bit. I'll give you a reference for that so that you have it. And I'm going to pull up the comments here on the side. But in reference to the journeys, what we mean is the first 6 journeys are all about the inner world and how to navigate that. And when it comes to relationship, there are things that come up in relationship that might not come up anywhere else in a person. And so the first journey is understanding our brain, our mind, our bodies, how they work. So it's all about the non-consciousness and the automations that we've programmed in. The second journey is about awareness and waking up to that. And then we go into navigating the heavy emotions, which is where this show is going to be really powerful. So I want to stay right in this area for now, and then we'll move through the other 8-9 journeys. So the first thing is, can you speak from your own experience of prior to doing what you do today? I would imagine you had a different set of programming that you were using to navigate your relationships. Can you speak to that a little bit of who you thought you were when it came to a relationship?
Absolutely. I was raised in a very narcissistic environment. Both of my parents on opposite sides of the narcissistic spectrum. And when it came to me being in a relationship, it was everything was coming from trauma responses. My, feeling of neediness, of needing attention, of needing to be desired, and also on the flip side of that, just feeling a need to prove myself. So really what it was this wound that was just so desperate for love that I wasn't having in my life growing up.
So you needed to prove yourself. Is that right? Yeah. And so how did that carry over to your relationships? What happened there? Did they work out really well?
In some ways,
Yeah.
sure. But I've been really fortunate in that I met my husband in college. And so the relationships prior to him absolutely were very challenging. And just, I guess, these aspects of self-discovery of, just being cheated on and, why that was the case. And, just not having anyone really feel like I had my back. And meeting my husband, we were friends first. So this wasn't someone I thought was, my forever.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I was doing, not even recognizing, as I was pushing him away. He was this loving, good person, and I wasn't accustomed to that. I was accustomed to relationships being challenging and having to prove myself. And here he was happy with me as I was. And I would push him away. I would, I just kind of held him at arm's length. I would say things like, when we break up, I'm going to be single for a long time because I'm not good at relationships. And it would crush him. I remember the look on his face, but we're 19, 20 years old. I didn't see forever in this, as I said. So it was very interesting for me.
I don't know anybody like that. I'm just kidding.
Don't you need to tune in on that one?
Yeah, no, it lands, and I'll tell on myself, and it's not telling on, it's calling out, what's gone on for me, and then we'll pull that in here. Is I grew up in a relationship where love was very, very conditional, and people would come in and out of my life. My dad died when I was 2. My mom never remarried. There's 11 kids. She doesn't have the attention. And they say trauma and neglect register the same in the body. So my nervous system as a kid was, I'm on my own, right? And people leave. And so growing up with that mindset, when I get in a relationship with Andy, it's like, holy crap, dude, I'm not used to this. Something's off here. She's too nice. She's too good. Like I start questioning things and I start to push her away. Right. And, right, honey, or do you just feel always close to me?
No, you do push away.
Yeah.
You question it.
Yeah, I do. And it's hard because, she's great. She's not doing anything over there, but my nervous system over here is like, nah, this can't be real. She's going to leave just like everybody else. Right. And so instead of having the pain of her actually leaving, I create her leaving first so that I don't have to feel as much pain, even though I'm creating the same pain. Right. Yeah. Can you speak to that a little bit? Why do we do that?
Well, it's a survival mechanism. There's an aspect of it that feels safe. It's a form of self-sabotage, but often our self-sabotage comes from this innate ability to want to feel safe. And, to speak to what you were talking about, the nervous system is hardwired to trauma responses. So when we are anticipating a potential reaction based on our past experiences, we are going to do our best to try to avoid that. So especially when these relationships become, what feels very real and special, it can scare us more and make us feel unworthy of them. And so if we push them away and they break up with us, we've just proved them right. We're not really that lovable and they shouldn't be with us. So
holy crap, dude. Well, this sucks. This is my show. So this show is going to be about me. And there's so many people that are like this in relationship. There's attachment wounds that we have, and if they weren't developed early on, then as adults, we get to reparent ourselves around those. And the good news is I'm waking up to it. But Andy says this to me a lot, is like, what, you were so good in the beginning with everything. What happened? We've been together about 2 years now. And it's like, well, I wasn't as invested back then. It's like this was, a possibility to leave, and it wouldn't be a big deal because we never got really connected. And so I didn't worry about it as much. And now that we're in relationship, I'm like, I don't want to lose her. I am afraid of her walking away and leaving me. And so I do have these old wounds are like coming to the surface almost all at once. I say, like, you're hitting every button I have. It's not that she's doing that intentionally. It's just,
oh yeah, I am.
And maybe Andy, you can talk to about your experience around that, and we can all just kind of play with this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you experiencing?
Well, I think from where my past relationship was, I did stick around too long, and it was more like abandonment, where I felt a lot of abandonment, but like he would always just pick a fight and leave, pick a fight, leave, pick a fight, leave. And, at first you cry, then you stop crying, and it becomes the norm. And then you're like, feel the peace when he is gone until he comes back. And so where mine was like, does anyone stick around? So I'm very grateful for the space he gives me, even though he's doing his pushing. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. But at the same time, I'm not telling him, I'm so grateful that you came back and we talked this through, because he is a talker. So it is refreshing. Like when you come out of something like that, like he would like to thank my ex for being so horrible. That makes him look really, really, really good. But he is really, really, really good.
It's the secret. I think it's the secret. Just date a girl who had a really, really, really bad ex, and you're going to look golden, right? but these patterns, so she has hers, I have mine, right? We have old wounds that are coming up, and the word trauma means to turn the wound. And so that wound gets turned, and it hurts, and it's very real and visceral. And I've been learning with Andy here how to self-regulate, because when those emotions go, I'm not me the way I'm normally me. Can you talk about that? Like, what happens when we get triggered? And even hearing what you hear with Andy and I mean, what comes up for you around that?
Well, I'll first speak to just what's going on in the body when that happens, is because I work with the chakra system, the 7 main chakras, and I connect to people's chakras. I connect to their energy system, and I could feel the traumas. I could feel where there's blocks. I could feel where there's activations. But ultimately what happens is when we have a traumatic event occur, as humans, we are not really taught how to feel and process emotions in the moment. We're more taught how to protect ourselves and how to hide from them. So what we do from an energy standpoint is the trauma hits the body. It comes at us. And we have a direct response usually to shut down. But what that does is it locks it in. And that's why the trauma stays stuck. So it does take time and retraining of the nervous system to allow that to come out, to allow that to process through. Because ultimately, when these things happen, they should be processing through in real time, not getting stuck in the body. But the reason it gets worse over time is as these things come up later in life, it's basically opening those old wounds. So the trauma is active again. And now you've just piled new trauma over old trauma, but they have this kind of energy. So as far as you two, you guys basically, like attracts like. You guys had a similar wound that brought you together. So now you have this opportunity to work through, heal that wound together. But a lot of what that is recognizing what's the wound. First and foremost, I would say you're going to be wanting to work on some root chakra stuff, because this is absolutely not grounded kind of behavior to just want to run, to want to push people away. That's not feeling stable. That's not feeling grounded. So I would be working on some root chakra stuff first and foremost.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy. And then
he runs, well, he will go through his thing where I'm like, I shut down. I just shut down, and then I don't want to talk about it. And I mean, I'll talk about it, but I have my limits, and
move away. Like you'll shut down and move away from it, right?
Yeah, and that's my protective factor. And so, what I need to work on is not doing that and just being in the fire and just talk it through right then. Because sometimes I feel like, okay, let's talk about this later. When the emotions just calm down or whatever, and to put on the sideburn or on the side and speak, and then try it the next day, when I'm more calm. But yeah, I need to work on not shutting it down.
Well, and I have mine too around that. So my fear response is to flee, to faint, right, to shut down, and to fawn. To seek out that reassurance that we're okay. And so the good news is that I'm very aware of my reactions, how they show up in my body. And so I've been working really hard on recognizing, oh, I'm doing what I've always done as a pattern when it comes to relationship and things get hard, right? And so now it's a matter of, okay, now that we're aware of it, awareness is the first step in transformation. Now it's how do I rewrite this narrative and do the change? Because you talk about trauma is stored through the whole body, like Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk, Gabor Mate, they all talk about that your body stores it. It's not just a thinking thing. It's like you sometimes don't even have words and you don't even know where it's at in your body. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so when somebody becomes aware of it, which is the second journey of transformation, it's the second journey of the 12 journeys. How do you become aware of these in a way that is actually healthy? You talk about, oh, that's a root thing. For you, that's easy, right? That's all you do for work. You're like, oh, that's a root chakra thing. And somebody listening to this is like, who the hell is this lady? And what is she talking about, this root chakra thing? Like, what do you mean? And can you go into that a little bit and talk about what you mean there?
Well, our chakras are energy systems, right? They're energy systems that are alerting us to our behavior. So if you cannot read energy, because yes, you're right, I do this all day, every day, pretty much.
Yeah.
And, but really you can tune into what your trauma responses are, as you both already spoke to. Everyone has one main trauma response and like a secondary backup trauma response. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You always have your main one, and then you have the backup. So when you recognize what your trauma responses are, that's the first step to understanding you and your behaviors, because your behaviors, especially your trauma-based behaviors, are based in trauma and how you had to adapt to situations growing up. So your nervous system is basically still in this adaptation of I am still trying to survive the initial incident that triggered this in me in the first place. So if you have something that's triggering a trauma response, you are taken back to that initial response that activated it in the first place. So it's really, you don't necessarily have to go back and relive the initial trauma. I'm not a big believer in that. Not everyone can do that and handle that well.
I'm with you.
But I am a believer in approaching it like, okay, this is my response. Can I train my body to understand it's safe right now? It is not in danger. There is no bear. And can I allow myself to calm? So that is where a lot of the somatic practices come in. Like Andy was talking, when she goes into her freeze, I mean, as soon as you were saying that, I was like, you have to breathe. Like I just immediately felt you need to be breathing into your lower chakra areas first and foremost, and like pushing that breath down. So if you've done breath work already, wonderful. If not, I certainly welcome you to explore that, because it will help you, because freeze type of responses always locks everything up. So you have to move, and breath is the best thing in that moment, because our breath keeps us in the present moment. So really any trauma response, breath is good, because breath takes us into the present moment and out of the past.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to hang here for a bit, Chris, because this is essential in relationship. We think, oh, I've got a partner now. They're going to do all the heavy lifting. I'm going to be okay over here. I can take a break. Right. If they respond this way, then I'm going to be okay over here. So we put all this responsibility on them. This is where I got myself into trouble. Is I would say, I need you to do this so that I can feel safe over here. I need emotional safety from you, right? Like it's her job to create emotional safety for me. Well, then I didn't have to worry about it because she would be the one responsible. So if she screws up, then I didn't do that. She did that. So now she's at fault. Right. So I outsourced my emotional safety to her. And this poor girl over here is like, that's a moving goalpost. That's a black hole I can never feel. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around this. So I had to take back in that ownership of I am responsible for my emotional safety, right? That if she's doing things over there, then it's up to me to start regulating me over here so that I don't bleed that on her. I mean, so we talked about breath work, but what comes up as you hear that in my own experience of the importance of bringing the ownership of the self-empowerment, like the right, the safety, the emotional safety, bringing it back here. How do you handle that? What would you advise somebody that's maybe trying to navigate that? Their partner keeps triggering them, right?
Well, whenever we're giving anyone responsibility for our feelings and our emotions, we're giving our power away. And there's no healing in that. So whenever we want anything in any kind of situation, relationship, environment to change, we're the ones that need to change. And it's recognizing that. And that could be one of the harder things to do, because the first thing about that is really looking in the mirror and asking yourself, who am I? And that's not always easy.
Yeah. So who am I? I'll dive a little deeper on that. Okay. So the who am I? Who do I say I am? And especially in relationships. So who am I in this relationship? And most of us are reactive to our relationship. I am whoever my partner is. So if they do something, then I'll show up nice. You know, if they don't do something, I'm going to show up mean. So it's all dependent on them. You know, I'm not me. I'm whatever my partner's doing, and I'm reacting to that. And I had a hard time seeing my own, so I created an application to help me see it. I call it the Mirror, and it's an AI-based application that I'll dump out and be like, Andy's doing this, and she did this to me, and blah 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 blah. And the Mirror will go, hold up, buddy. Let me tell you where you're coming from. I hear you, and this is where you're coming from. And a lot of times where I think I'm being wise, it's coming from my adaptive protectors. You know, I'm sitting here going, I'm fully justified in my view and opinion here. And it's old wounds, right? It's that old safety. My adaptives are trying to create that safety. And so that's part of knowing who you are, is what do you do that creates that safety? Because it's not your partner. That's me. Yeah. Right? Can you share a little bit more around that? What comes up as you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely always, it's going to start with us no matter how we look at it. It doesn't mean that our partner doesn't have responsibility. I believe in partnerships being exactly that, a partnership where you show up for each other. But can you do it in a way where you are not treating each other as a threat? Because as soon as your partner does something and you're receiving it as a threat, that in itself is something that's not healthy. Because oftentimes, especially in partnerships where people truly love each other, they're not trying to hurt each other. So that's kind of one of the first steps of saying, I'm safe, I'm okay. This person is not trying to hurt me. This person loves me. I'm hurting me right now by taking it on as an attack.
Holy cow, yeah.
When we can
I think if you're looking for it, you're going to find it.
Yeah, exactly. And because it activates the systems in the body. It activates the old wound that says I'm being attacked. So that's why we go there. So it's literally retraining that part of ourselves. Most often this is in the gut. This is in like either the sacral or the solar plexus chakras, where that part of you is like, I'm being attacked. I got to protect it. This person is being mean and I'm going to come at them. How dare you? Because it's a protective mechanism to protect the old wound. So
trying to create safety, right?
Trying to create safety. Exactly.
But creating chaos.
Yeah.
While you're trying to create safety.
There's
Holy
safety
crap.
chaos when your nervous system is used to chaos. When your nervous system has adapted to chaos, safety
is foreign.
Exactly. Like kindness, love, support, that's all foreign. So that's why a lot of times people in relationships where their nervous systems are completely adaptive and related to chaos, if they are in a quote unquote safe environment, that will feel foreign to them and they will fight it. That's why people often in those kind of relationships pick fights out of nowhere.
Yeah. Wow. Andy?
Yeah. Well, I've always wondered, I mean, you hear that people that tend to go from one toxic relationship, they find something healthy, they start to question it. They're like, this isn't right, because it's what they're not used to. They're used to the drama. They're used to the turmoil. And then it's just unhealthy, and then they push it away. And then I think to myself, like, hell no, I love this peace I'm feeling. You know, it's a breath of fresh air. You know, you go from being suffocated and just drama nonstop, that when you find peace, I'm grabbing onto it. I love the peace, and I'm so not looking for anything else, but it's refreshing, you know. But not everybody, you know, a lot of people question. I just got blessed to have an amazing man, you know, and I don't question him. I know he's amazing, and so it's peaceful.
I think what I've been experiencing too in our relationship is there's that peace. Like I just know, I know, and I'm experiencing all of this stuff that I didn't know was there. Like I get in this relationship, and here's a woman that loves me, and I'm like, what are you hiding? What's coming? Where's the other foot coming from? You know, and I'm preparing myself for that impact, because there's no way that you love me the way you love me right now.
You're right? Putting a seatbelt on the bear on the bus.
Yeah. So, but and this is beautiful, because I had no idea that was even there. You know, we joke about it, Andy and I, because you got a lot of single friends, and they're out there. I can't wait to get in a relationship. I'm like, buddy, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You think it's going to be sunshine and roses. You think that you're going to just be in peace all the time around your relationship. It's not going to bring anything up in you, that your partner's just going to be so loving and it's going to be good. And I love what comes up in me in our relationship, but holy crap, is it hard? And I didn't know it was even there, right? Is that pretty common?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our relationships are mirrors in so many ways. They show us these versions of ourselves we didn't even know existed.
Yeah, this is where Andy, as you know, her being her, and this is what we've tried to honor, is not allowing, I don't like that word for that, is giving her the room to be her fully as she is. You know, she does her thing. She models, she dances, she sings, she does all these things. For me over here, I'm reserved, I'm quiet, I like my alone time. So I have this partner who's just like the opposite in that way. And so in that, like giving her the room to be her, it triggers this stuff for me. And in the beginning, and you know, when this started coming up, I was like, I would like for you to stop doing this so that I can feel safe over here. And she's like, don't you dare step on my freedom. Her sovereignty and freedom is the priority. Don't you dare step on that. And that felt like a threat. Like what? You know, and you see these TikTok videos of, if your woman doesn't respect you, leave her. If your woman's doing this, that's a red flag. Leave her. Everybody's like, leave them. And you could buy into that and just leave them. And then those lessons are all gone. You just missed an opportunity to grow with somebody, because everybody says, go get the greener grass, right? How do you hang in? How do partners hang in on this stuff? Because it's not easy.
I think it really comes down to, does the relationship have respect? When the relationship lacks respect, then it's lacking a key part of the foundational element of a strong, healthy relationship. Because we can be triggered, we can have our issues, and we can do our best to work through it. But if you don't respect each other, then it's going to be very difficult to get beyond those triggers, because it becomes a very self-serving type of relationship. It's not about the other person. It's how the other person makes you feel. It's how what the other person does for you. It's very, like I said, it's very self-serving. So when you have that respect, it really helps in so many ways, because especially when you're trying to work through things, it really helps with communication. Because when we respect people, we communicate with them better, because we legitimately care about their feelings, and we care about ours too, and we want to work through stuff, but we also recognize, okay, this isn't just about me, this is about them too, and how I'm showing up for them and how they're showing up for me. So I really think respect is so incredibly important. And also understanding what respect means to you, because respect can vary from person to person.
Please dive into that, because it is so misused.
It really is, because respect is often about honor. Like, you must
Mm,
honor me, you must obey me. And I don't agree with that. I know a lot of people that are very religious will disagree with that. But
mm.
I'm not making it about that. It's just more of, can you really respect this person, love them for who they are, accept them for who they are, in the sense where you can really communicate your stuff, I'll say, because I feel that we are all faced with triggers in relationships, all of us. It's part of what we're meant to work through in relationships. So when you can go to your partner and say to them, I'm struggling with this, can we talk about it? Can they
Mm.
respect you enough to turn around and say, yes, let's talk about it? Or are they going to receive it as a threat and try and fight you on it, try and convince you that it's not real and gaslight you?
Right.
So someone who respects you is going to be like, okay, let's talk about this, and not take it as a threat that we can't, because that's not a problem, because I don't see it as one.
Yeah, so it's not about obedience. See, that's where these videos online are so damaging, is because it's their version of respect is you obey me.
Hmm.
You do what I want you to do. And the word respect, respecere, is to look back again, right? To look back again and have a willingness to look back again. There have been times, I've come to Andy. Andy, I'll be, with your permission here, a little vulnerable, and I won't throw us under the bus here. But there have been times where I've told her my feelings and then I feel dismissed. That's not a big deal. Stop it. You're playing, you're being insecure. And then I feel dismissed and not heard. And I don't feel respected in the sense of, no, I'm having an experience over here and you just brushed it off like it's nothing. And maybe it is nothing for her, but over here it felt like you just diminished everything I just shared with you. Like it doesn't matter. And she's done a lot better around that, of opening up to, look, I don't agree with you. She doesn't have to, but I can hear you. I can at least understand where you're coming from. And to me, that creates emotional safety, is just having her hold that space for me to have my experience. And doesn't mean I'm right. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think you bring up a good point of, it's not about agreeing. We're not trying to
Yeah.
convince the other person to agree with us. It's more about, can you support me where I'm at? Can we talk about this? This is bothering me, and I want to have a conversation about this. And can we move forward with this conversation? Because otherwise, if you cannot have those kinds of conversations, those are the things that just grow, and they come up later, and it becomes more explosive in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Andy, are you having thoughts around this? What comes up for you?
Mm, no, it's that goes to where if you don't have that communication and that safety, that's where the resentment starts growing. And then we start slowly moving this direction rather than closer and resolving, or at least acknowledging each other's feelings.
Yeah.
And
I've learned wisdom from Andy, though, and honoring her boundaries, because her boundary is, if she's done talking about it, I get to honor that. So if she says, I'm not in a space to talk about this right now, I need to move away from it. Uh, Prior to our relationship, I would have said, I don't care what your boundary is. In a way, I'd be like, I need to talk about this. So you're going to sit and listen to it. Right. And I've learned that, no, I get to honor that. If that's what she needs, that's her space. I don't get to go walking over there and tell her, no, we're going to talk about this.
we
So I'm
bookmark
learning.
it.
What's that?
We bookmark it.
Yeah. So it's we bookmark it, we come back to it, but she does need that reset. And it comes back to these tools of, if I'm dysregulated and I try to talk to her, I am not coming from a whole wise self. I'm coming from fear, trauma, wounds. And so that's what's doing the speaking, and not always good. And it's doing the speaking to create safety. It's like, that's how it learned to create that safety. So, I mean, as you hear that, I'm just gonna ask you, as you hear that, what's reflecting for you in your mind as you hear that?
Well, really, when you talk about safety, I think it is so important for us as individuals to learn to teach ourselves to be safe and not rely on someone else to help us feel safe. Because it goes back to, we give our power away and we give our
Yeah,
healing to someone else. We're giving the responsibility of our healing journey to somebody else. And it's up to us to do that, to embody that, to collect and harness the tools to help us feel safe, to help us feel connected, because all those aspects of not feeling safe is fear-based, of fear of that person's going to leave, fear that that person might not love us. And really, when you feel safe, you're not scared of those things anymore. You might not like it.
Yeah.
It's not about liking it so much as, can you teach your body to feel safe? And then work through the stuff, because the relationships that are meant to really last are the ones that I feel do well, because each person feels safe in who they are as individuals. So it really makes them collectively a really good team.
Yeah, that teamwork, right, is as a partnership. I want to honor Andy. She is independently her. She has her own characteristics. She has things she loves to do. And in the in the beginning here, I was starting to bleed what I wanted, my ideals, onto her. And you talk about a fighter.
And I come from a very controlling relationship, and it was not good. And so you learn that in that relationship, like, if you speak up for yourself, you're in trouble. You're just like further in the doghouse for speaking up to yourself. So then you go, fine, I'll do it, I'll obey. And then you do it knowing it's going against your grain. You're like, I know I wasn't doing anything wrong in the first place. And then you go and for example, wear one bra to the gym rather than two, and or you go to Walmart in your gym clothes. And
by the way, this isn't me doing that.
No. And then you're in trouble again. I hate it. Like, I felt like I was like that child, the naughty child. I was in trouble again. And I'm like, I didn't see anything wrong in what I was doing. So you're trying to keep somebody happy, but in your heart of hearts, you're not doing anything wrong. And so I've got this, like, no, this is your issue now. This is not mine. I'm not going to own your problem. And because I know in my heart, I'm not doing anything wrong. I know where I'm at. And so I put I'm stubborn, and I'm like, no, you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me this or that and what I should do or shouldn't do. Because I know where I'm at. And I don't know if that's a bad thing, that
No,
I'm just,
I think it's good. You know who you are.
Power to somebody again.
If you didn't know who you were, you would probably, I'd steamroll you, or somebody else would steamroll you. If you don't know who you are and where your boundaries are, you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe that is mine. But there have been times where I've seen your response come up in the relationship, and it's the old response from him. And I'm like, I didn't want that at all. That's not what I'm looking for. I do want to communicate, but there's this shutdown and taking on of full responsibility, and I'll just do this. And you can feel the resentment in that. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. But there's also my responsibility over here to know what your boundaries are, so that I'm not over there trespassing all the time, right? And if you don't know what your boundaries are, anything kind of goes. Is that kind of accurate? I mean, not in justification, but Chris, do you see that as pretty accurate in relationships if you don't know who you are?
Absolutely. I think that's the first thing, is just knowing who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what your boundaries are. And especially if you've had your boundaries squashed your entire life, then you really don't know how to even set them in the first place. Boundaries are challenging, especially, I was raised in an environment where boundaries were not allowed. Boundaries were a threat. And so a lot of us will adjust our boundaries to make other people happy. So we may not fully adjust them, but we might alter them a bit so that it will, at least the other person might be okay with it. But boundaries are not for anyone but the individual setting them.
Oh, can you say that louder? Like, that is such the golden rule right there.
And if you don't like it, it's not it's a them problem, not a you problem.
Yeah.
And of course, I'll just throw out this disclaimer, assuming those boundaries are not hurting anybody else
Right.
from a physical safety standpoint. But most people do get their feelings hurt by boundaries, because boundaries do feel like a threat to other people, especially
Yeah.
if they're not used to having boundaries set. So, like I said, I was not allowed boundaries growing up. So if I ever tried to set them, my parents absolutely would have seen it as a threat. My dad
Yeah.
would have attacked me for it, physically, verbally, and my mother would have done something more in a manipulative manner of like, oh, I'm such a terrible mother, and things of that
That's what I grew up with. And so when
Well,
I
I think you
hold
have
my
to be passive to be, and I think there's certain people that look for those personalities, like a passive personality, to be able to do what they do, and then when you have somebody that's not a passive person, it's just a constant conflict, right? Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to.
boundaries are
No,
so
you're good. You're good.
because, like I said, it's just a matter of how people perceive boundaries. And when it goes back to that initial thing of respect, can we respect
Yeah.
the boundaries other people have set and not perceive them as threats?
The keeping my boundaries feels like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm being aggressive, like I need to apologize, and for somebody that doesn't have boundaries or hasn't had boundaries, when you start to own your boundaries and you're like, no, that's not mine. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play your games over there because that doesn't belong over here. But I was taught that boundaries were for other people, right? This is what I need them to do, and this is what I'll allow them to do within my space. Boundaries are never about the other person. Now, there's the golden rule of boundaries, right? I would like to do unto others as I'd like them to do to me, but there's no requirement for them to do that. Andy doesn't owe me that. She doesn't have to do what I want her to do. She doesn't have to live life the way I want to live it ever. And even if we came to an agreement, both of us say we're going to move forward on this, she doesn't even have to live that. And there's not a damn thing I can do about it. So this idea of putting boundaries on my partner, that's where we're getting muddied, is we think we put boundaries on others. We think respect is about control. And this is where all these red flags, oh, they're a narcissist because they won't listen to me, right? We throw out all these judgments, and then we gaslight ourselves for having boundaries. It's like, oh, you're broken. It probably is your problem anyway, right? Self-gaslighting.
Well, there's also when they're gaslighting you so much, you start to second guess everything you do.
Yeah.
And you just question, oh, am I doing, how's this going to impact or whatever, you're questioning everything. Am I doing the right thing? Because you're like, how's it affecting that person? So you just start to question yourself naturally when you've been gaslit so much.
It's how it's supposed to work. I mean, you're gaslit so much that you question yourself. That's why it works so well.
That's interesting, right? Is they get you to question yourself, and then your boundaries are dissolved.
Completely dissolved, and then
Right.
you're adhering to their demands, whatever they
Right.
are.
It's
Because you
designed to
believe
break
you're
you
the
down.
problem.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go backward here. I want to bring these up. Everything, how to study and how to make time for study, but I can't do that. We'll pull that. I'm not sure where that's going, but I do want to hit on the regulation of the body. So the first step is awareness. If you don't know, if you don't wake up to it, so you don't see the gaslighting, you don't see the boundaries, you don't see any of that, there's nothing to do. It's when you wake up, and I think many of us, when we wake up to it, we immediately attack ourselves. Like, shame on you for even being where you are. You should know better by now. Who are you? We do the damage to ourselves. So that first step of awareness and waking up to it, we're in a triggered response, is number one, we have to wake up to it. But number two, and witness it. Number two is to get our emotions, to get back into the presence, right? The self-regulation. And I want to talk about that for a minute, as the self-regulation. What are some of the most powerful tools you've learned? And you mentioned breath, but specifically, what kind of breathing and tactics have you used to get self-regulated, to bring your body back online? What actually works? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Breath doesn't always work right away, but it's really practicing it, because what happens is when we're in any kind of trauma response, our breath is automatically abbreviated. It's shortened, meaning the lungs are not filling entirely. So if you're not focusing on a count, just focus on, can you fill your lungs entirely? Usually it's, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, release for 6, right? But
Yeah.
A lot of us, when we're in a trauma response, we're not thinking through that. So at least can you think, I'm going to fill my lungs right now. I'm just going to fill my lungs. Because when we get into those abbreviated breaths, that's where all the tension starts to come in and lock into the body. So a lot of people in those senses, they'll have like stiff neck, back, trapezius kind of tightness, shoulder pains.
My traps are like,
yeah, it gets all stuck there because you're not
big.
breathing properly. So it's really like, because if you think of it too, when a lot of people think in those responses, I'm going to take a deep breath, you'll notice their shoulders rise really high. That's still a stress breath. You want to be breathing from the belly. You want to be, can you allow the belly to expand and try not to be like, because you're still like not doing the breath properly when your shoulders are going so high. So you really just want to work it into the lungs. So that is one of the things you could just work on. You don't have to worry about counting, but just get yourself out of a stress breath to calm the nervous system on. And this is kind of those minimal stages, because once you're in a trauma response, it's going to take its course, but allowing it to process by breathing through it, almost like labor, you're breathing through the pain to allow for it to flow through you better. It really helps. And that could even help in anything acute, like if someone feels a strain suddenly in their body, I'll say, breathe into that area, take a deep breath and focus on that area. And they're like, oh, that feels a little better. I'm like, yes, because you released whatever started to get stuck. So that's where breath is really, really helpful. Another thing I really love is tapping. So if you're familiar with EFT, technique, tapping, because it works on your nervous system and it works on changing you at a cellular level. So it's really retraining the body, all those tappings, it's utilizing the meridians to help your body now assimilate to this new version of you, to this calmer version. It's just, you have to do that with regularity, because a lot of people will do it and say, I did it, it worked for a little bit, and then I stopped. And I'm like, okay. We are all on our own healing path, our healing journey. So it's up to us whether or not we want to use the tools that are provided for us, because like I said, that's always about taking our power back and not giving it to someone else and expecting someone else to make it better. So it's doing that work on a regular basis, probably more so in the beginning. And then over time, you don't have to do it with regularity.
Yeah.
But when you are still in the thick of trauma type responses, your old adaptive behaviors, doing those things on a daily basis is really helpful and very important, because then your trauma responses aren't as dramatic as they used to.
Yeah, that's huge.
Can you explain? I've heard of tapping, but what exactly is it?
So emotional freedom technique is basically where you're tapping all these points. You're starting here and you're talking through it as well. So, because there's also a lot of activity in verbal release, and a lot of times people will yawn through it because that's a release. They might get a little teary-eyed, same kind of release. But you're tapping all these points on the body as you're saying these things, and each point is connected to a meridian, because our bodies are based on we have a grid system. So these meridians, as we're tapping, we're releasing this energy that got stuck, trapped, whatever the case may be, or it's just not circulating on these meridians. So it really allows for the release. And I can say, when you start, if you've never tapped before, it feels ridiculous. It feels absolutely ridiculous.
Look at that nerd over there, like,
here I go. Okay. And it's like there's no rhyme or reason, but for me personally, I was just so ready to heal. And I didn't care what it took. I just decided I will make this better. I will calm my nervous system. I didn't know exactly that was what I was doing at the time, was calming my nervous system. I just told myself I will feel better. And that was it. I didn't know how. And I was just I found a lot of these tools. I kind of feel like I stumbled into it each time. And it's probably
trying to heal you, right?
Yeah, I had to find me. And I have this saying, I say this to a lot of people: once you understand yourself is when you can then go beyond yourself.
Yeah,
so
wow.
The journey of self is so important, and you're probably on it for a lifetime, but it does so much to help you expand.
That's so important, like especially in relationship, because we give ourselves up in relationship, and that's not what relationships for.
No.
So Andy and her unique way of being, that's her. Like, I either accept that or I don't. She's not causing harm, right? So if I try to change that, then I'm stripping away her and I'm creating what my ideal is. And sometimes I did a post on this week, is those ideals need to fade. They need to kind of have a funeral for fantasy, is what I wrote in there. Is that isn't hers, that's mine. And we might experience a grief around our ideal not being a reality, but it's not because that person's not a good person or anything. It's just simply that ideal isn't who that person is, and I get to let that go.
Our expectations.
Yeah.
Managing expectations is huge, because our expectations are usually based on these elements of feeling safe. So if we manage our expectations around ourselves, we do a lot better of managing whatever those expectations we have for others. Because really, the more we can release those expectations around others, the better we make our lives, I feel. And
we set ourselves up for disappointment.
Exactly. And for
it's like with your own kids.
Yes.
You expect one to become a doctor, the other one to be, a brain surgeon. You're going to be setting up yourself up for failure. You're going to be disappointed, and you can't put that on the kids. You can't put that on anybody.
Absolutely. I'm noticing a comment here that I'd love to address.
Yeah, let's pull it up. Which one?
That I feel like a victim at times. I've had some horrible stuff done to me. I actually get this question a lot, which is why I want to address that. So 100% yes. And people definitely do not agree with me on this. So please hear me out. I believe it is very important to have your time to feel like the victim, because when some horrible things have been done to you, it is really hard to ignore that and just be like, okay, moving on. I forgive and forget. That's forcing forgiveness. And I do not believe in forcing forgiveness ever. I'm not for that. So have your time to being your victim stance, to be like, woe is me, this was awful, this hurt, because you're allowing releasing your body, because that stuff that was done to you was also done to your body, whether emotionally, figuratively, physically, it's in the body somewhere. So allowing yourself this aspect of grieving and mourning, I feel, is so incredibly important. But it's just the one thing that gets a little tough is if someone stays in that. A lot of people, especially, this is why narcissism is running rampant, is because narcissism is all connected to wounds. So while some people can become very terrible, deep down, they're a very wounded person. So that is someone ultimately that resided in the energy of victimhood and made it everyone else's problem. It's always everybody else. It's never them anymore. So that's what staying in victimhood, the risk is because you are now just looking at it like it's everybody else's fault, and like you don't have any kind of power in your own healing and moving forward. So that's why I believe it's taking those personal steps, really moving forward, shifting the energy. But like I said, allowing it, processing it, and then move past it.
Beautiful. I mean, I've seen people weaponize victimness. Like, now they're the victim, so they're justified in hurting others because they've been such the victim. And it's like, holy cow, you talk about turning things around. It's challenging. I would love for you to address this question too. What do you suggest as a way to keep respect connecting as years go by?
Well, in some cases, it's the little things. Like, are you still dating? Are you still doing little things for each other? Because as years go by, we get comfortable, we get complacent. So are you allowing for the spark in the relationship still? For example, things I like to do for my husband is, if we meet up somewhere, but we're at different cars, I'll leave a note under his wife. And, and that's what he goes home, or that's what he goes to his car to. Sometimes I'll do a little note, and if I make lunch for him that day, I'll slip a note in, or just randomly throughout the day, sending him a note. I'm so grateful for you. I love you. Thank you for all you do for us, and things like that. Just being present, how are you? How's your day? And listening, not just asking, but listening. And dating is a really big thing. It doesn't have to be a big date. You don't have to plan and go out. Take the time. Just sit together, have a meal together. You know, go for a walk together. It doesn't have to be big, but it's making for those elements of connection where it's just about you two in whatever space you've created for each other.
Yeah, I read something this week about the mind and how laziness, often people say, oh, laziness is such a terrible thing, but we're engineered for laziness. We're engineered for efficiency. We're engineered to go back to homeostasis. And anytime you're seeking success in something, it takes conscious effort. It's taxing on the body. It's taxing on the mind. It requires burning more energy. So the body is going to try and pursue that efficiency anytime it can. So these people judge themselves as being lazy. It's no, your body is going back to complacency. It's going back to efficiency. And so what I'm hearing and what you're sharing there with relationship is it's a very conscious thing. And what happens is we tend to go unconscious with it. We tend to go automated on it. And that's where we lose that connection. That's because we put a lot of effort in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And I can see for me where I need to do better. I can do better. How about that as a possibility within this relationship where I can be more conscious of her, and then she feels respected because I'm noticing things without her having to bring it up, right? And so that's what I hear. I don't know, Andy, do you hear something in that too for you, or?
Sorry, I'm choking right now.
Besides choking, I love to ask you questions right when you're choking.
Well, I always take pictures of people when they're stuffing food in their mouth or
What? Yeah.
right after they took a bite. I'm like, okay, what was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no question. Just a noticing, like I love the idea there of just, I feel like respect is really just being conscious like you were, do you have some thoughts around that, Andy?
Well, there's just that I think so many people would get just automated, like, phone we get wrapped up in, just life that we don't stop and smell the roses. And we just keep going. But a lot of times, like, it's crazy where, someone remembers a conversation and the other person doesn't. And you were just not even present. And so a lot of things get back past you. I'm not talking about, but a lot of things do get past you. And a lot of times with relationships, I find when people get into that mode, they are just missing a lot of things. And then by the time they wake up to it, it's a little late. So they don't realize how far they've drifted apart. So if you're like in the ocean and you're just floating, you are going to get pushed one way, someone's going to get pushed the other way. And if you're constantly paddling and, you have a goal where you're paddling and you're both paddling in the right direction and being conscious about it, if someone goes to sleep, they're going to drift off.
That's beautiful, actually, right there.
Yes.
That's exactly what I see, I'm not, Andy, that's what you're doing in our relationship. No, I'm just messing
on the paddleboard.
I'm just messing. But I start to feel in myself, oh, I could do better there. And I'm having a distinction in my mind, but the difference between shame and guilt, right, is guilt is a tool that our bodies develop to realign because our relationships matter to us. It's like, oh, I can see where I'm not doing so well there. I feel that guiltiness of, I want to keep that relationship. I'm going to realign. Whereas shame is, you're a terrible person. You can never do that, right? It's more of, you're broken because you're not doing that. And that's where shame really like destroys our ability to even try, because if you're that, you're only going to create more of that. So why would you even try? Can you speak to those two words there?
I love that you're getting into this because it's absolutely in my wheelhouse. So shame is in the sacral chakra, guilt is in the solar plexus chakra, and just to add to that, fear is in the root chakra. So this is all lower chakra kind of energy. And that is where a lot of our energy becomes stuck, stagnant. A big one is that guilt in that solar plexus area, why so many people feel disconnected from themselves, because that is the chakra of personal power. So when you are disconnected from yourself, it's usually because guilt is very prominent. And with the
Wow.
shame of the sacral chakra, that's why a lot of us become disconnected from elements of who we are in relationships, our sexual nature, our creative nature, that drifting apart. It's like you're no longer connected to those creative elements. The sacral chakra in the beginning of a relationship, we all know, is so activated. We can't keep our hands off of each other. It's always like, where can you sneak away into a closet or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
that over time, as the elements of shame, guilt, and fear come up, those all become a little quieter. So then, because the trauma elements are coming up. So that is why I think it's so important to understand those aspects of our bodies and how they're coming up, and to help them work through that.
That is so powerful, so beautiful. It makes so much sense. Like, a lot of my suffering happens in those three areas: the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, and then the root, getting into my gut. Because when I feel dysregulated, I'm full on feeling all the chemicals releasing from that area, feeling the sinking feeling in my gut. And one of the things they teach in somatic healing is to recognize the sensations, not try and label the emotions, right? And so I've been practicing noticing the sensations more and more, and just sitting with them, allowing them, witnessing them, versus trying to fix it or call it something so that I feel, oh, that's anxiety, right? It could be anxiety, maybe it's not, so
anxiety is fear. It's a disconnect from the body because fear has been activated.
Well, it's like she said, sit with it, recognize it, but don't stay in it.
Yeah, breathe through it, allow it to process, because it's really like, I like to just visualize it. Okay,
Yeah.
I feel this, it's coming. And it's like, because usually we're hit in the front of the body more often than not. So I like to just visualize it going through me, like allow it to process. You're going to feel it. We're human.
Yeah.
We're meant to feel, but don't trap it inside. Like, okay, I feel
Ooh, I
this,
like
it
that.
hurts, it sucks, I'm gonna let this pass through. And sometimes it'll linger. Some things hurt more than others. Sometimes it takes days to process. So it's continually doing that. You don't have to do it 24/7. But okay, can I breathe through this? Can I allow this to release? What does this feel like? What does this look like? Does it have a name? Does it have a color? I really like to try and really connect with it so I can identify it. And then it's like, okay, now I could try and make friends with this. What are you trying to teach me? And because that's ultimately what's going on. The body is trying to teach you something. The body is telling you, it's the alerting signs. Something's going on here. Something doesn't feel right. So when we learn how to talk with our bodies in these ways, we do more for them.
Yeah. Holy cow, this is so good. I feel like we just opened up the can of worms here, and we're going to wrap up at the same time. So, we'll touch on this. I want to highlight this because for me, in the world of, the giants here in the 12 journeys, it's all around helping our small parts become giants. And those places where we feel insecure or small or wounded, we can heal those. We can do it, right? But we've been taught, no, that's others. That's why we have family. That's why we have culture. Now they can be a part of that environment for sure, but our responsibility is us. And so when we put our small selves on our shoulders and stand up and show them, look, I love you and you're welcome here, and I'd love to know more about you. And and the difference between her and I, she's like, get off my shoulder. That's funny. But that's really what we're doing. Is that's a signal, is when you get traumatized or triggered or activated, it's really a signal of there's a part that could use some healing here. And you have a chance to really sit with it, get to know it. And this is where I think in the past I've been taught, oh, you need to process that first. You don't. The first thing you need to do is recognize it's there, witness it, which means allowing it room to be there, and then sit with these sensations, follow them through and let them flow through you. And then after you've done that, then do your processing, right?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes, and it takes time because a lot of people will abandon that practice because we become hardwired in our responses. The nervous system is hardwired. Our fear, flight, whatever's coming up, those are hardwired. So when we can really recognize why we're responding that way, or even if it's not connecting fully to the why yet, but just the fact that it's happening,
Yeah.
it's really okay. I'm just going to allow this time. I'm not going to fight it, because
Wow.
we are taught to fight trauma responses.
Yeah. Wow.
Way, not necessarily in the warrior style, but in a way that we're either burying it, we're hiding from it, we're shielding something. But
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah. It's, Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger, Bessel van der Kolk, they talk about, one of the tools I'll just share real quick here is to breathe in through your nose slowly, as deep as you can, and then to exhale doing the VU, because the VU breath is creates that vibration, but it regulates the vagal nerve. And in nature, animals shake. They shake off the trauma and they go back like nothing ever happened. A lion just about ate them, and they're out there eating grass like nothing happened. And as humans, we've been taught that you trap that, you stop that, and you store it in the body. I'll share one quick example. There was a man that went to Vietnam. He was in his 60s, and he had no trauma response, no PTSD. And when he started getting into his older age, his brain pathways started breaking down. And he said he would just start sobbing for no reason. He couldn't explain it. His body was just starting to release all this stuff that he had trapped in there after 40, 50 years of not being in war. It finally started to surface. And like you're saying, we need to let it flow through. And the more we can sit with it and allow it and witness it, like you say, what color is it? What does it have a smell? What does it sound like? How does it feel in the body? We're so afraid of that. We're taught to numb it out, get distracted, go get on TikTok, watch some videos, doom scroll, drink some alcohol, right? Do some drugs. And then we don't feel it. We feel those. Like you're hitting on just such a powerful, powerful thing to release, to allow to flow through, stop sticking it in you, right?
That's why we feel it in our body.
Bad. And when we're taught emotions are bad, we stifle them. Anger and grief are the two biggest emotions that tend to be stifled, because we're taught that anger is not okay, and we're taught grief is not okay. Every emotion we have as human beings are 100% okay. It's just, can we allow that for ourselves? Because especially when it comes to anger, that's why so many people are so angry. It's been stifled for so long that it's elevated to rage in many people. So when we're stifling the emotions over time, like your Vietnam vet example, it just all of a sudden comes pouring out.
Yeah.
And can it come out in a healthy manner, where unlike in people with anger that develops to rage, that it's just they're so angry all the time because they haven't processed any emotion. So now it's just exploding out of them, and everyone else has to receive that. No thanks.
Right. Man, this has been eye-opening for me. I'm having a lot of anchoring in of things I've been learning and realizing. And I've done a lot of work around me and individually. And then I come into a relationship and it's like, holy crap, dude, you're starting at zero. And so I'm learning new things within relationship that I didn't know in my first relationship. I can see where my contributions helped create that divorce, and now I'm looking at my relationship with Andy and going, okay, how can I grow me and heal me so that she and I can be stronger together? I don't get to do her work. She doesn't get to do mine, but I also don't get to control her work. Right.
Yes.
This is eye-opening to me. Is there anything that you're nudged to share right now that you feel, for our audience, you feel like I probably should just hit on this, that we didn't talk about?
Well, I feel healing is a journey, and a lot of times we want to heal yesterday. When stuff hurts, we're in a rush to feel better. And when it comes to energy, if we try to force it, it's kind of a rubber band effect. So anything we try and force, it's going to snap right back to those old patterns. So it's really understanding that we have to have grace for ourselves through these processes of trying to heal, that it is not going to be perfect. That saying healing is not linear is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Because it can be ugly. It can be really dark at times, but when we allow ourselves that grace and allow ourselves to connect to that element of self-love, that we're doing our best each time, it does a lot to then, so you don't have that snap back rubber band. to go back to those trauma responses and go back to those adaptive behaviors.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Andy, thoughts from you? What are you realizing? What are you noticing for you?
Lots of golden nuggets here. Lots of golden nuggets. And I really love that you came on here to talk to us, Chris. Like, we could keep this going on.
I know we could. And I appreciate you both. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing your insights.
Chris, as far as your website goes, what can people discover there about you? And what are you up to?
Right now, I'm actually teaching right now. I'm teaching people how to up-level their intuition because so many people are in this process of awakening and connecting to themselves. I have all my services. I do energy healing. I do feng shui.
Okay.
It's all about energy, right?
Yeah.
And I have a blog too that people just want to read up on things to really help them in elements of healing the nervous system, healing in relationships. So they want to take a game.
Yeah. Let's invite them over.
Yeah.
Go bang on Chris's door. Yeah. And go to chriswasko.com and you'll see everything about Chris. This is our first time meeting and it's been beautiful. I brought you on as a guest because of your expertise in relationship and really in the somatic tools and your ability to help people to see how important that part is. And not only that, but to be able to use it. And so thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. Our goal is to create an impact and a ripple in people, one giant at a time. And so if we only had one person on this show, it'd be worth it for me. And so, but we have more than that. And so for those that are commenting, we are grateful for you. Your comments definitely make this show what it is. We appreciate your engagement with this. You probably know somebody that could use this message right now. They're either in relationship or they're doing their own healing journey and they need to hear this message for themselves. Please share it with them. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that because we have 330 plus episodes like this that are incredible. We get to learn from experts every week on how to be a giant in your life. And so we hope you'll do that. And be sure to go check out my12journeys.com where you can start your own giant's journey and heal love and heal your inner small. And so we love you. Go make it a giant day and we will see you in the next video.
Thank you.